What's up, everyone? This is Midnight Strike 3625, welcoming you guys back to another classic review. So today we're going to be talking about a band that I haven't talked about in a very long time. Actually reviewed two of their albums, their first and last, and this is a review that you have had to see coming for quite some time, especially on the classics bucket list. Van Halen's major label breakthrough, 1984. Now, this is probably their most famous album of all time, especially it was their major label breakthrough, as I said before, and it has three of their most famous songs on it: Jump, Panama, and 1984, Hot for Teacher. 1984 is a little synthesizer intro in the beginning that doesn't really make much sense, but I digress. That's why it's called this, although I think they probably should have named this album either Panama or Hot for Teacher or something completely different. Released in 1984, this album pretty much contains everything that Van Halen is, as well as adding some new radio-friendly elements at the time, such as synthesizers and a little bit of vocal effects on David Lee Roth's voice. This is, of course, the last album with David Lee Roth until 2012's A Different Kind of Truth, which I actually reviewed the day it came out, but of course, all the channel bullshit that happened in May, you can still find that review. It's actually the second review I've ever posted on this channel, but I digress. We're talking about 1984. This actually is only a 9-track album, but all of the songs are actually pretty decent. I mean, I haven't really found any song on here that I couldn't care for, but All Wait is one of those few songs on here that I couldn't really get into. It's probably the most synthesized popish song on here, and it's very, very, very straightforward. Hell, half the time I thought I was listening to like Survivor or something. I mean, one of their really popish songs, not like the hard rock balls out, Eye of the Tiger kind of songs, but you get my point. This is Van Halen. This is not Survivor. This isn't an AOR band. This is the hard rock, partying, booze, sex, drugs, rock and roll kind of band, and that is, of course, Van Halen. So, 9 tracks, and most of them are good, with the exception of All Wait, and I don't know. I haven't really found a point for the 1984 intro. That's about the only thing, is the intro and All Wait. All Wait, I actually hear on the radio a lot, and I've actually warmed up to it more than I had in the past, but that still isn't, enough to say that I actually like it. So let's start on a track by track. 1984 is the intro that I've talked about like 6 billion times already. It's just a bunch of synthesizers. I mean, it's a product of the times. It sounds very dated, I suppose, but then again, if you listen to Bon Jovi, if you listen to Dream Theater, if you listen to like any old 80s to 90s rock bands, they're going to have those sounds of the times, much like, Alice in Chains and all those grunge-ish kind of things, but this is a product of the times, especially with the 1984, the kind of synthesized intro, as well as the synthesized intro to Jump, which this song actually leads into. Jump is one of their most famous songs, and I definitely see why. It's used in a lot of different things, like hockey games, football games, especially that iconic intro, that synthesized intro. Now, this is something that Van Halen could not have done on any other album, on any other time period, because it was just released at the perfect time. I mean, this album contains pretty much everything from past Van Halen to what Van Halen will become later on in the future, and then they would switch back to what they do best in the 70s with 2012's A Different Kind of Truth. So basically with this song, it's Jump is a very simplistic song. It doesn't really kind of jump out at you. There's no real, huge variation in the song structure. I'm losing my train of thought here. Long night, but there's really no variation. I mean, it's kind of straightforward, but it's really catchy and it's really nice, and it's kind of a really awesome song, especially with these synthesizers. The synthesizers in this song actually do complement the structure itself. Even though there's not really much of a structure, the synthesizers kind of blend around it and create like a nice warm atmosphere, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. Especially in the little synthesizer solo towards the middle section of the song. It's definitely placed right, it definitely sounds good, and I really have no complaints with it. The next song is Panama, and of course there's another synthesizer in the beginning, and then it gets into the guitars combining with the synthesizers, and there's a lot of different variation in the song structures. The chorus sounds completely different than the verses, and it's kind of skates by on a more mid-tempo. It's not the fastest song, they've ever done, but it's not also not the slowest. So it's got a nice tempo to it. It's got a really good variation in the structure, and it's one of their best songs they've created. So the next song is Top Jimmy, another one really good. Not really as good as Panama or Jump, but it is still a pretty decent song, to say the least, especially on this album. The next song, Drop Dead Legs, this one's kind of a filler. I mean, it's okay, but the structure and just the way that David Lee Roth kind of sings in the vocals just kind of threw me off a little bit. That's not to say that I don't like it, but it's just not one of the best on the album. So the next one, of course, is Hot for Teacher. This one begins with the awesome drum beats and then kind of just gets faster and faster as it goes along. This is probably one of their best songs to date. I mean, I don't know if it is their best, but it definitely has the best backing vocals, with the exception of a few on Van Halen 2. It has the best, beat to it. It has kind of the best of everything, actually. I think this is probably my favorite song by Van Halen, with the exception of a few off of their first album, but definitely my favorite on this album, and it's definitely a top contender for one of their best. I love the structure, I love the guitar sound, there's no synthesizers, so this would fit exactly on Van Halen 1, on their self-titled debut. It could actually fit on anything, really. I mean, Diver Down, Van Halen self-titled, maybe not so much Van Halen 2, but that's just, that's just me. It would definitely fit on Women and Children First, though. This is one of the casual Van Halen listener songs that you can just listen to it once and that's Van Halen. So it's a great song, great opener for the song, great structure, and it's just awesome, I guess. Great solos. So the next song, of course, is I'll Wait, and this is the one that I talked about before. Don't really like it too much. I mean, the vocal effects on David Lee Roth's voice were just too much. I mean, there was just something that was there that didn't need to be. I think it was the synthesizers. It's a song just completely made out of synthesizers. I mean, I couldn't really hear that many guitars at all. So this is one that just kind of came out of left field. So that being said, the next one is Girl Gone Bad. Kind of another filler one. I mean, it was okay, I suppose. House of Pain, the last song on the album, is a perfect closer. Awesome guitars. Not really that many synthesizers in there, but it would fit on, like, maybe Van Halen self-titled. I mean, it's a great song, great structure. It's got kind of a windy intro, but in my copy of the CD anyways, there's like this like hiccup in the sound. I don't know what it is. It doesn't seem to be on any of the remasters. Maybe they took it out, but on the original copy, there's a little bit of like a hiccup in the beginning of the intro, and it just kind of takes you by surprise a little bit. I know it wasn't intentional, but it's there. So, I don't know. Overall, I'd probably give this album 9.5 out of 10. I mean, it's not their best album. In my opinion, their best album would be Van Halen 1, shortly followed by A Different Kind of Truth. Maybe they're, neck and neck. But as far as 1984 goes, I would definitely say it's a top contender for either their second or third best. So, with that being said, this is Midnight Strike 3625. Thank you for watching. Keep calm and rock on.